Hi, everybody. My name is Aaron Mesh. This is our Distant Voices series here at Willamette Week. And today I am talking with David Kennerly. He's a photographer who has worked for The Oregonian, Life, Newsweek, a bunch of other places. But today we're talking with him especially because he grew up in the town of Roseburg, Oregon. And Roseburg is the site of one of the largest, at least until this week, ammonium nitrate explosions that's ever been seen. And David was there. What was it like?
By the way, there was a way bigger one than that before, and it happened to be in 1947, which was the year I was born, in Texas City, Texas. And there was a ship loaded with ammonium nitrate, like almost as much as what happened in Beirut. And there was a fire, it blew up, it killed 580 people, it leveled the whole place, destroyed 1,000 buildings. So in a way, Roseburg was kind of small time, but not from my perspective as a 12-year-old kid.
What year was it? At the risk of aging you, what year was this?
59.
Okay.
And the anniversary is August 7th, so it's coming up. It's going to be in 2 days from now. And I was at home, of course. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I heard the sirens went off. And I had a bedroom that faced sort of downtown Roseburg, which is not very big, up on a hill. And so I was looking, I could see there was a big fire burning. It was probably 10 or 12 blocks from our house. And all of a sudden there was this giant explosion, and it threw me back across the room. And fortunately, we had French windows, so there was no glass that came out of them. They were open, but it blew out every other window in our house. And a dynamite truck had parked next to a building supply. It was called Garrettson Building and Supply. And the guy was on his way up to the North Umpqua River for some construction site. He had 2 tons of dynamite and 4 tons of ammonium nitrate. And because the building caught on fire, it exploded the truck. And like the whole building went up. It looked like a nuclear blast. And it rained fire all over Roseburg. And I was 12, but I remember this like it happened yesterday. I mean, that's something you don't forget. And
what did it smell like?
I don't remember. All I know is one hell of a boom. And they called it the blast. That's the name for it. And there were 14 people who were killed. It also blew up my junior high school. I was supposed to start Central Junior High that year, and it was only a block away from the explosion, so that got wiped out. And we had to, another thing I remember clearly is we had to do a double shift with that fall at another junior high. And but it was a really big event, and unfortunately I wasn't taking pictures then. That would have been one amazing photograph when that thing blew up, and all the fields and everything around our house caught on fire because of the burning sticks were like falling all over the place.
It was happening at night, which means like it must have just been like incredibly vivid amounts of fire coming from the sky.
It was 2 a.m. in the morning, and from my place you could also see it was called Mount Nebo. It was like a small, like a oversized hill. But one of the other things, you just triggered a memory actually. You could see the flames reflecting off of that huge hill, and that was it was, yeah, I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. So the good news is there weren't a lot of people downtown. Mainly the people who got killed were like firemen and other people, but it was. It could have been 10 times worse. If it had happened during the day, people would have gone around. That's what happened in Galveston, or not in Galveston, but Texas City, and people went out to look at the ship burning up, and it blew up. And what happened in Beirut was, of course, you saw it on all those cell phones. So today's version of rubbernecking.
You said that the Beirut explosion was something like 700 times larger than the one in Roseburg?
Yeah, because Oregon was, Roseburg was like 4 tons, and that had 23 or 2,400 tons of ammonium nitrate.
Did those images awaken any of your interest in photography, or am I trying to make a connection that's not really there?
No, I think there was a connection to that period of my life, because on a much smaller scale, I remember that there was when I started getting interested in photography, might have been that year, the next year, I don't remember, but there was a garage fire near my house, and I ran down and I was going to take some pictures, but the cops wouldn't let me near it. And I saw a photographer from the News Review just kind of waltz through the police lines. And I remember being very impressed by that this guy could go and take pictures of disasters or mini disasters. And, but I think I've really, my whole career has been about wanting to be there when stuff was happening. I mean, that's always been a compelling part of why I do what I do.
You've gone on to photograph presidents. Have you photographed Donald Trump yet?
Oh, yeah. My first picture of him, and if you go to Kennerly.com, you could look at a blog that I did, but I covered the campaign in 1915, it seems like it, 2015, and my first picture of it was at a Republican debate. And then during the campaign itself, I was with him the last 3 weeks of the campaign. I was there in New York when he won at the Hilton Ballroom. And I did a formal portrait of him for the CNN book cover called Unprecedented. And it was a sit-down portrait with him in his office at Trump Tower 2 or 3 weeks after he became president.
Visually, does anything about him stand out to you?
Well, I mean, he's got the kind of hair that people like make fun of. He's like, he has a pretty intense stare. When I did the portrait of him, and he first started out, he was smiling, and I thought it looked a little, it just didn't come across as genuine to me. Or at least it didn't seem to suit him. Maybe that's a better way to put it. But so I said, well, could you give me the "you're fired" look from Apprentice? So he kind of goes like this, a little scowl. And I said, well, that's a little scary. And at that point, he said, can I see what you're doing? And he looked at the back of the camera and said, wow, I look better there than I do in real life. And I said, so you're not going to fire Jared for setting up this session, right? He said, no, he'll be okay. And then I took a milder shot. And so the photo they used on the cover was between the smiling and the tough look.
And you're saying the tough look seems to suit him more.
You know, and that one was, he's an actor. He's an actor. Like Ronald Reagan was an actor. I mean, I said, could you give me the "you're fired" look? And he gave it to me. And he said, could you back off a little from that? I mean, when you're doing a portrait, you need to talk to the subject. And I ended up, that session lasted 2 minutes. That's it. And I knew I had what I needed.
What's it like being a photographer at a time when everyone's wearing a mask?
Well, that's a good question. I did an interview with the Columbia Journalism Review about covering the COVID thing and how do you do it? How do you do it? It's hard. Everybody's behind masks, behind protective gear. It's difficult. There were 3 other Vietnam era photographers who were interviewed, and he said you see it in the eyes. And but part of what's happened here is people can't go and visit their relatives in hospitals. You're not there with them when they die. There's no graveside moment like how we would traditionally think about covering something like this. It's a hard one. There was a photographer in Indonesia. I don't know if you saw that picture. It was on National Geographic, who had a picture of a body that was wrapped up, and it was alone in a room, in a hospital room. It was an incredible shot. And that comes the closest to something that really gives you the chills about the isolation, the loneliness, all these things that we've created because of the pandemic.